On 7th October, Saturday, Hamas, a Palestinian militant group, launched an attack on Israel. And in response to the attack, Israel launched a counteroffensive on Hamas positions in the Gaza Strip and formally declared war on Hamas a day later. Now, this ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas poses a potential threat to oil exports from the region, adding to the uncertainty in international energy markets. Here's the big question. Could this conflict further disrupt an already fragile global economy, especially as the world grapples with economic upheaval and Russia's involvement in Ukraine is intensifying the situation? Well, let me explain. The ongoing war between Hamas and Israel is a part of the decades-long Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Western countries and their supporters have blamed Hamas for their violence, but other countries, including Muslim countries and Hamas, have pointed to the Israeli occupation of Palestinian areas as the root cause of the escalation. A week into this war, many innocent people have already lost their lives, and both sides have been accused of committing war crimes. So, as the world observed in horror, the price of oil increased by as much as $5 per barrel. Futures markets declined, and the Israeli shekel reached its lowest level in 7 years. In fact, on October 9th, a 4% increase in global oil prices was driven by concerns that Hamas's unprecedented attack on Israel over the weekend could spark a wider regional conflict involving major oil producers. However, oil prices have now fallen in the past 2 days after initially jumping owing to the violence, which has relieved some pressure on inflation and boosted Wall Street. But it still depends on how the conflict plays out. Moreover, this unexpected strike has added to the geopolitical instability that has been shaking global financial markets in the wake of rising interest rates. Now, you might be thinking, Israel nor the besieged Gaza Strip are significant oil producers. Then what might be causing the hike in prices? Well, the worry is that the violence of war could spill into the politics around the crude market and hurt the flow of petroleum. Countries like Iran and Saudi Arabia, two of the world's largest oil producers, are based in the neighboring region, the Middle East. In fact, any disruption in the Middle East, a region known for its oil reserves, can lead to increased oil prices. Given the ongoing talks between Saudi Arabia and Israel, the timing of the confrontation could not have been worse. If the Israeli bombardment of Gaza persists, Saudi Arabia may join a coalition of Arab states to exert pressure on Israel to stop the bombardment, thereby jeopardizing the agreement between Saudi Arabia and Israel. Also, Iran has been accused of assisting in the attack, although Iran has denied any involvement in the weekend attacks, but the situation could change. So, if the conflict continues, Iran can attempt to stranglehold on tanker traffic. This could push prices higher, particularly given the market is already tight. Additionally, the United States may intensify sanctions in response to Iran's increased involvement, which could impact the global oil supply. Now, if you ask, to what extent do rising oil costs affect an average individual and the economic situation worldwide? Well, high energy prices and inflation are two areas where the Israeli-Hamas conflict is causing concern for the global economy, because higher oil prices can trigger inflation. Just when oil prices rise, it leads to increased production costs, affecting various industries, and ultimately consumers feel a pinch through rising prices of goods and services. These added expenses can put a strain on company profits, which may result in layoffs and exacerbate economic difficulties. In fact, the price of oil is directly related to the cost of living crisis throughout the Western world. And while the Middle Eastern countries would feel the effects of rising energy costs the most, the ripples can be felt far and wide. In fact, the Israel-Hamas conflict has the potential to impact the US economy in multiple ways, from the risk of higher oil prices and potential disruptions to transportation routes to the uncertainty it creates on financial markets. Conflict presents obstacles for inflation, growth prospects, and interest rates. Also, this disruption in oil supply and inflation is likely to have an impact on the demand for safe haven assets such as gold, the US dollar, and the Swiss franc. So, this geopolitical situation adds complexity to an already difficult global economic and political climate, which may increase worries about inflation and growth. Although the short-term reaction of the markets to the crisis was expected, but medium-term trends will depend on how the situation evolves. The potential for the conflict to spur inflation and impair global growth has also been underlined by the International Monetary Fund and World Bank in their recent meeting. According to Geeta Gopinath of the International Monetary Fund, a 10% increase in oil prices may cause inflation of 0.4% a year later, posing a threat to the global economy. However, it's still unclear what these ramifications actually entail. Meanwhile, the president of the World Bank, Ajay Banga, stated that the Israel-Hamas conflict is an unnecessary human tragedy and global economic shock that, if it spreads, will make it more difficult for central banks to accomplish soft landings, a slowdown that avoids a recession in many economies. Moreover, the central banks were beginning to feel a little more confident that there was an opportunity for a soft landing, but conflicts like this just make it harder. As International Monetary Fund chief economist Pierre-Olivier Gorincas puts it, the global economy is limping along, not sprinting. And considering this challenging backdrop, it's hard to deny that the road ahead appears quite grim, doesn't it? So there you have it. The Israel-Hamas conflict has the potential to impact not only oil prices, but also inflation rates on the global scale. But it's too soon to tell if this battle will have far-reaching effects, and much will depend on whether or not it draws in other countries. So it's a situation we'll be keeping a close eye on in the coming days. And as we wrap up today's discussion, it's clear that the Israel-Palestine conflict is not just a regional concern, it has far-reaching consequences for the world economy. So if you found this video insightful, please give it a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more thought-provoking content on current affairs and their broader implications. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.